I'm a Western herbalist. That's what they would call me. So we do pull a lot from American plants, but then we also pull a little from Chinese.
And I would love to know how you got on the herbalist path. What led you here?
It's kind of a long journey. Gradually, I guess, how I got there. My husband became a chiropractor. And so we were sort of had a foot in that holistic sort of door. And then I had a hyperthyroid, and conventional medicine was like, we want to give you radioactive iodine, and then you'll probably have a hypothyroid, and you'll have to be on medicine for the rest of your life. And I thought, I'm going to get a second opinion. And so then I found a homeopathic doctor, a medical doctor who's a homeopath. And then that probably really opened the door for me for using holistic modalities.
Yeah.
And he didn't use herbs, but that was sort of the pathway, So then I started using herbs for basic things like colds. And I guess this is my aha moment. I call it my action potential. I was using herbs of just little dabbling. And on his shelf, he had an old magazine from the 1970s, National Geographic, about people in the Appalachian Mountains. And a grandfather was teaching a grandchild to smoke mullein for congestion. And I just was like, there's just so much I don't know, about herbs. And so from then I eventually found a school that I could get my master's degree in it from. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So with your practice right now, what's the type of clientele that come to see you?
It really ranges. I do think a lot of people who come are people that are struggling with things that health concerns that haven't been helped by conventional medicine. So those tend to be a little bit trickier clients because they have trickier things going on that weren't solved easily by mainstream medicine. And then I have people who just don't want to use pharmaceuticals, would rather this is getting a little high, what can I do? My blood pressure's a little high, what can I do? That's probably the main part. But it kind of tends to be divided, though. People who have kind of gone down the mainstream route and it hasn't worked at all, or people who just don't want to do that, don't even want to start.
Okay. Yeah, I'm appreciative of that. Normally with the alternative healings, there's always a couple of people come in skeptical and stuff like that, but it feels like your clientele is already just one way or the other. They're here, they're ready to work. It's just the opposite.
That I'm in a chiropractor's office. He's an acupuncturist, so there's always already those people looking for holistic modalities. But there are people like that, especially there's people just want to have a look-see and see what it's about, but don't really intend to follow through. Maybe it's their first step into that first foray. And there are people whose friends are like, you have to go see her, and they just are doing it to appease their friends. There's also, I was thinking the majority of my clients are women. And the men that I have are female significant others. Are like, go see her.
Got to listen to the strong women, absolutely.
Yes.
So if I'm your client, I come in first, this is the intake session. How would you start off? How would we look at this?
So I have a form that I send, and I'll say, if you have time, send it to me. If you send it to me before, then I have a chance to look over it, do the research beforehand.
Right.
I always feel like this is the person's healing journey, and I'm looking for them to set the pace. For some people, maybe it's really scary. Some people are like, I didn't get to it. I don't want it to stress them out. So however it goes for them. So I do have a big intake form.
Okay.
And on that, it does ask you to set kind of 3 goals. Why are you coming? What are the major concerns? Mm-hmm. Some may say stress, fatigue, high blood pressure, or whatever their goals are. But then I'm really looking at the whole picture. I'm looking at their sleep. I'm looking at their bowel habits. I'm looking at food. I'm looking at, all these indications so I can see it holistically. I do think sometimes people, they'll be like, oh, I forgot to tell you, sometimes my toe really hurts. And then, that's important. They'll tell you some random thing because it's all important. It's all encompassing.
Right.
I recommend this dispensary. So what I do is I see the client and then I come up with a formula. And usually the formula might be a tincture, one's a tea, or, it can vary what you want. So let's say I'm going to give somebody a meal support tincture and then a tea for relaxing them. or something, right? So then I use an online platform that I write the whole formula and like, okay, I want you to have 8 milliliters of yellow dock and this much of dandelion and this much of this, you know. So then I write out the formula, and this software sends them that, and they purchase through there, and then the dispensary makes them up and sends it to them. Yeah, so I spend an hour and a half with people on the first appointment, and then any follow-up usually so I get like a good picture.
Yeah.
And generally I feel, healing holistically, I think, is a bit like peeling an onion. So you're usually kind of working on something that they're having symptoms they want solved, and then there's some underlying issues. So sometimes you peel those symptoms off, and then you're really working with that underlying core thing. And from that, usually the way I do it is I see them, then they're on the first recommendations for a month to 3 months, depending on the person.
Okay.
And so they might come back in a month after being on herbs. So sometimes that's like a month and a half or whatever. Or we might wait 3 months. And then I'm usually shifting the herbs because we've solved some of that like extraneous noise.
Yeah.
And then we're sort of getting down to the core. And so after like 2 or 3, they might have 2 or 3 appointments. They might have like something that they're going to take for 6 months to a year or something. And then we're going to reevaluate. Generally for herbs, you're not staying on them for the rest of your life.
Right.
Unless you're missing your gallbladder. If you're missing a gallbladder, you need something to replace what that was doing for the rest of your life until you grow one back. So in those cases, you're on things for long term, but often you're not on things forever.
Is there a specific herb that is most commonly used, or is it a wide spectrum?
Oh, it's very, very wide. I think there's a couple of schools of thoughts within herbalism. Some people say you should just know 25, 30 herbs really well, and you'll be a great herbalist. And then some say the more plants that you know, the more the plants are seen as useful and will stay around, because there are plants that are endangered. So, and I know herbalists that do both. So there's you probably couldn't count how many plants are used as medicine.
For someone that's new to the world of herbalism, we hear things like balms and tinctures and oils, and is there a smooth way to explain the differences and what are commonly used, or?
Yeah, so I generally am using tinctures, which is an alcohol extraction. You put the plant in a certain amount of alcohol. Depending on each plant has an amount of alcohol that is better extracting the constituents. So you put it in that alcohol, you soak it generally for a month, shake it every day or something like that. And then you strain out the herb, and then you're left with the menstruum, the liquid.
Okay.
And then that's what you would take as medicine.
Okay.
So that's a tincture. And then, of course, there's teas. That's probably what most people, which is what we call cut and sift. It's the dry herb. And then powders. So you powder the herb, and then something like applesauce to take applesauce is a great medium to take a herb.
Interesting.
And then of course there's your salves and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Generally, I'm working with tinctures, cut and sift, and powders.
Okay. Going from working with you gave me mullein, let's say. I've worked with that for a couple months to a couple years. I'm able to.
So I would almost never give you just mullein.
Deal. Okay.
Okay, so let's say you have a lung condition,
Yes.
and we're working to heal that. I would probably give you several things
Okay.
in addition to mullein.
Gotcha.
And generally for lungs, I like a tea, so you'd be taking it as tea.
How can I graduate from the tea to having herbs in my life?
In your lifestyle, yeah. So I wish I remember the name of these books. Maybe I could send you the name, but there are books that, like recipe books on how to have them in your life. Rosemary Gladstar has some good books that have simple stuff that you can make at home and just incorporate in your life like that. And, there are products, like I really like this one product. It's hawthorn solid berry extract Maybe he doesn't say the berry in it, but it's a good lifestyle herb, that supports the cardiovascular system and the heart. And you can just have, sometimes that is, I guess, a pre-made product that I sometimes recommend, but I might have somebody start out taking it medicinally and then just move it to a lifestyle. So they're taking it once or twice a week, half a teaspoon kind of thing. So there are ways to like incorporate that. Yeah. And soups, that's another thing. Like if you're making bone broths, I often am putting herbs in my broths. Like I'll put reishi in my broth and astragalus in my broth. I'll put mullein in my broth.
Oh my gosh.
then having a burdock. Burdock is a great food herb. Do you know burdock?
No.
And you can get it. Do you have mom's the grocery store? You can get it at that.
Okay.
Sometimes your farmer's market, they'll have burdock. You can easily grow that one in your yard, but that's a good one you can add to soups.
Okay.
I think it's better in soups, but you can roast it. So.
Is it a fair question to ask what your favorite herb is, or are there just so many?
There is a lot, and actually, when I first became an herbalist, I would just put like everything in it, and I wouldn't really formulate. And my mentor was like, no, you have to formulate. You have to choose between them.
Yeah.
Because I love them all. I just like wanted to put all of them in. Definitely mullein is one of my favorite because it is that action potential to learn the leaf, the flower, and the root. And I really like that. And then you have your favorites that just work for everybody, work in general for a lot of people. Oats are really nice, holy basil. Who doesn't love chamomile? Yeah, I guess it would be hard for me to pick a favorite other than mullein.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. And I mean, I'm sure there's someone out there right now writing down mullein and trying to figure out everything about it.
Right.
So this is where things get interesting because we have herbalism, which our conversation right now feels more on the scientific side of things, but there's also herbalism, the spiritual side. How much do the two blend when you're working?
Constantly.
Okay.
So we call it energetics. So it's the energetics of the plants. And you're looking at the energetics of the person too. So when I'm figuring out herbs, that's a major, I am looking at like, okay, this person needs liver support, but I'm also looking at their energetics. Are they hot, cold? Are they quiet? Are they talkative? Are they, I'm looking at who they are as a person and then kind of pairing the best herb for their body and their energy.
I love that.
That's kind of hard to describe, but most of our godfathers and godmothers, they're talking about the energetics.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the energetics, are you thinking homeostasis, so how to balance out the person using the herb, or is it complement?
Both.
Okay.
So some of the time, let's say you have an herb that's very, it's cold and damp, but the person's cold and damp. Right. So it could agitate them if you give it, but you really want that herb. Then I'm going to make sure that I'm putting warming herbs with that to make sure that it does what it needs to do and it doesn't agitate them. And then sometimes you're correcting. Let's say they're too cold, that you need to warm that up.
So like someone having a cold, and I know one of the go-tos is like that fire cider and being able to warm up.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I love this.
Have you ever made fire?
I haven't. I have friends that have. My fiance has an allium allergy, so trying to avoid garlic and onions and all that. But I know, like, just even apple cider vinegar, just that a little bit of that spice tends to help. How does your practice, everything that you do in this office, not only impact the individual client, but the community?
The community, I guess it's a service available for people to have, to be able to use alternatives to maybe mainstream way of thinking. For some people, it works for them where conventional medicine hasn't. I do have quite a bit of people that are sensitive and they react very easily, and pharmaceuticals are difficult for them to stay on. And it's done to be gentle, more holistic, it's our more than one constituent, where like a pharmaceutical is that one thing, know. And so even if it's similar in nature, the plant just kind of can help you cope with the thing.
How we looked at a little bit of like the endangered plants and stuff like that, but there feels more of an ecosystem, not only for the plant's ecosystem, but for the body itself. It's not just going straight to the liver.
We were evolved with plants, you
Right.
know, so it is, we have receptors for all those things. And that's one of the things that people argue cannabis we were meant to have, because we actually have cannabinoid receptors in our body for that. So same, we have, you know, our bodies evolved with it. It's you know, food medicine basically. And so it's more closely aligned to what our bodies are used to and uptaking, and utilizing and putting it where it needs to go, getting rid of the waste of it.
I'm blown away by that. That's such a great answer.
Okay, good.
That's such a great answer. For me personally, my entire family's from the pharmaceutical side of things.
Oh, goodness.
So being able to hear how the herb impacts the entire body and encouraging that rather than don't you just want Advil to go for that one spot?
Right. The quick fix is tempting. I do feel like that sort of fix mentality is harder when you are trying to use herbs, because not necessarily gentle. You can have dramatic effects from herbs. We're not allowed to heal people, okay?
Right,
so I can't use that word. I can't heal them, but herbs are nudging people into health, right? That's reminding the body, oh, here, do this. Remember this? This is how we recover. It's nudging you. So when you want that quick fix, herbs aren't always going to do that for you.
Okay.
You know, you can't take, 4 grams of ashwagandha. That's a very popular one right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden not feel anxiety. You are going to need about 2 weeks to build that up in your system. I mean, I guess SSRs do that too.
Right.
So people are a little bit used to that, but it's nudging you towards health instead of sort of masking a symptom.
I just say, so there's, especially in alternative medicine and that sort of things, there is that weird confusion of, do we diagnose, do we not diagnose, what do we do in the office and stuff like that. So the idea of you're creating a lifestyle, you're establishing a practice that is going to help you in the long run.
Right.
Yeah.
Be healthy and stay healthy versus just sort of mask the symptoms. Some people compare it to, like, let's say you have a hypothyroid.
Right.
And your your cruise ship, and you're cruising along on the top, and all of a sudden the cafeteria stops making food, and the lights go off, and the pool's dirty, and all these things are happening. If you go on a pharmaceutical, the lights go on and all this stuff, but the ship is still steering towards an iceberg, right? Whereas if using holistic modalities, you're steering the ship in the right direction. A little longer for the lights to go on, or the pool to get clean, and the party started, the disco party, whatever happens on cruise ships, but your ship starts to steer in a healthy, sustainable direction, where your body can find its balance.
I haven't had holy basil.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've grown English basil, we've grown Thai basil, but that was more for culinary.
Yeah. So this probably maybe some people use it in food. I've never used it in food.
Okay.
Like as a tea or a tincture.
Tea or tincture.
More medicinal. I mean, this is really good nervous system, and it really supports the adrenals. It can really help clear the head sometimes.
Gotcha.
But it also has effect, like helps the body deal with sugar. So if your glucose is raising, that might be something I would use. Yeah.
Fascinating. I love that.
This one is licorice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it doesn't look at all what you think.
Not at
You
all.
want to taste it?
I would love to.
It doesn't at all taste like what licorice. This is a root.
It's so sweet.
I know, isn't it?
Oh my god.
It's so sweet when you pour in the dispenser and you pour the powder and you're just smelling it. You can taste the sweet, and it doesn't taste like licorice at all.
No, that is comical. That is it feels like a woody just sugar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so.
So one thing I didn't really talk about is when you're using roots, berries, and hard stuff, you're usually making a decoction, which is different than a tincture.
Okay.
So then, if I had something like this for you, let's say I put that and some hawthorn berries and other stuff, I would have you bring it to a boil and then simmer it and then strain out the herbs and take it.
Wow.
Whereas this you would infuse, and in both ways you're removing the herb. So then I mentioned that I put reishi in my stews.
Yes.
This is kind of what I'm And you can touch all this. It's very, you can see how hard it is.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
When I was first an herbalist, first in school, I bought a big thing, and it's so hard, I had to have my dad cut it with it.
Oh my gosh.
That's
That's
it's super hard.
That's not the expectation.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think I had heard that it was hard, but I was like, whatever. That's astragalus.
Okay.
And I have some flowers. I guess these are starting to look a little pale, but that's calendula.
Calendula, okay.
Yeah.
That almost has a chamomile.
Yeah, I think
smell.
a lot of the flowers have the same sort of underlying.
Gotcha.
I brought some burdock. You can taste that.
Perfect.
So if you got it in a health food store, just be in your vegetable section and it'd be fresh. Like a burdock is sort of like a wilted carrot textured or whatever, but this is dried.
Okay.
And then, have you ever had any tincture?
I've tried one tincture.
Okay.
Someone has suggested cannabis tinctures in the past and stuff like that. I don't think I've done an actual herbal tincture.
Okay, so I brought two. One tastes good and one tastes gross.
Love it.
So I thought this one's called Chen Pi, which is you age mandarin peels and then you extract it in alcohol.
Okay.
But this tastes good.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it. Sorry, let me explain. I'm gonna put it right here.
Perfect.
Taste it like that.
Deal.
I guess that was an important part.
Oh my god.
That tastes really good, right?
So what's the base for the tincture?
I put a brandy in that one. Sometimes you're making tinctures the folk method, and I'm especially doing that when I have fresh herbs. So I'm taking the herb and I'm shoving it in a jar and I'm covering it with vodka. Because the herb is going to have a lot of water and I'm not going to necessarily know the ratios.
Right.
And then I'm going to have very specific amounts. I didn't make that one, but I know that I need to extract it in a 60 to 80% alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very measured. I'm going to have the herb measured out. I'm going to have what it is. Just, I guess, not the folk method. Yeah. So, but often when I'm taking stuff from my yard, this is ginkgo, which of course everybody's heard of.
We heard of it.
This is one that is not so tasty.
Okay, here we go. Thank you for the warning.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
It's almost like if it was just like 100% cacao or something like that. It's like so
strong.
Yeah.
Right. So then often some people that tastes horrific to, and they can't take it. There are a lot of modalities that believe that the healing starts with the tongue, so you taste it and then it's telling the body the healing's coming. Like that's prevalent in Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine. So I would say if you can take it directly on the tongue, but if not, you can add it to water or juice and disguise it.
Yeah.
I just thought you should see a little bit.
Pretty.
Should be what?
Pretty. He's like,
yes.
It's not a pill.
Right. It does more naturally, I think, appeal to people, you know? And when you make a tea, also that's part of the healing process. You're making yourself a tea, you're saying, I'm healing, I'm doing this for myself,
Yes. Dominique, thank you so much for this demonstration. This is so cool. Yeah, I know. Me, for one, I'll be reaching out relatively soon asking for an intake form, and I might be that guy to tell all my friends come see you and everything.
Very cool, yeah. Well, this was fun to do. I wasn't sure what to expect or, what you really wanted.
Thank you. Thank you profusely. And absolutely, your email will be in the bottom there for new clients to be knocking on your door.
Okay, great.